Rashod Bateman opened up on a lot of things in an interview with The Athletic, and he, like a lot of us, are flabbergasted by the hate that Lamar Jackson gets. We talk about that, his extension, as well as other extension decisions that currently loom for the Ravens. All that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this edition of the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. 5 days a week of Ravens coverage on Locked On Ravens. Plus, we bring you bonus episodes, live shows, and so much more. And today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thanks to you as well. Ravens have stayed busy this offseason, and I know that Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap from Rush Street Report. Brian, you have stayed busy this offseason as well. Brian, appreciate you joining the show again. I think that for this Ravens team, a lot of people were expecting them to make moves. Well, I think they've blown a lot of expectations out of the water, especially with some of the additions they have made recently. I know we'll get to it in a little bit, but Jaire Alexander being the most recent.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the Henry deal done was something we all expected. Probably took a little longer than we had all hoped. I think and we talked about, I think the last time, the Barkley deal kind of changed the complexion of things a little bit, but they got that done. And I wasn't expecting Alexander, but I think it's a great move. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy, something that's been a problem the last couple of years, but for $4 million in cash, $4 million cap number. Fantastic deal. Apparently he was offered more elsewhere. He wanted to come play with his buddy. I still love that. It resurfaced, obviously, at the signing, that video of him when Lamar was drafted and he was doing an interview. It's such a great moment, just a pure moment. So, they go way back and are tight. And I would love to hear, I don't know if anybody's asked him, I guess nobody's had a chance to ask Lamar, that when he was making the comment about telling EDC to go get Jaire, I wonder if he knew at that point. I assume he did, but nobody else seemed to know. I mean, obviously the national press, the local press was totally in the dark. They must have stuck him in back doors and everything.
I feel like he had to know maybe a little something. Right. And again, the reports that have come out, I think Jeremy Fowler reported that, he didn't show up to Baltimore with the expectation of signing. I think Lamar probably knew he was coming in the building, but the Ravens recruited him really hard and they sold him on the idea of playing, which again, really big win for Eric DeCosta and the Ravens. A lot of wins for the Ravens this offseason, I would say, Brian, one of which was the Rashod Bateman extension. And I want to get into those numbers with you in a couple of minutes, but I want to first talk about the fact that Rashod interviewed with Jeff Zrebiec of The Athletic. It's a great article. If you haven't checked it out, for those who are watching or listening, be sure to go check that out because there's a lot of stuff Bateman opened up about a lot of different things in it. But he was asked about the criticism about Lamar Jackson. He said, what's the one criticism of Lamar Jackson that you're flabbergasted by? And I'll just read this off here and then Brian, we'll react to it. He said, quote, honestly, whatever they say about Lamar is kind of mind-boggling to us in general. If you watch the dude's highlight tape in college, he threw the ball really, really well. You watch in the NFL, he's throwing the ball better than most quarterbacks since he's been playing. I think they're definitely caught up in him not getting to the Super Bowl, but honestly, that's even hard to say. There's 11 people playing. It's hard to put it all on the quarterback, even though that's the leader of the team. If you really watch football, Lamar does a lot. He gives people jobs. He saves people's jobs. Lamar is a special generational talent. And this, to me, Brian, Lamar is someone that has had his fair share of struggles in the playoffs, but I think he gets overblown to a wide margin. It's a wide degree of overblownness that you get with that because it's not all on the quarterback. And Bateman kind of talks about it where quarterbacks do get the blame, but it's hard to put all of it on the quarterback, even though he is the leader of the team. And to me, I think that when you put Lamar in certain conversations and you say, oh, Lamar is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but then you talk about him like he's a tier below these guys and you put the weight of the world on his shoulders, but then not the weight of the world on other people's shoulders. It just feels like, well, sure, the stats might not be up to snuff in the playoffs compared to some of his counterparts, but you watch the games, you watch the box scores, and the line that I love here from Bateman is that it's true. He does give people jobs, and he does save people's jobs. He saved John Harbaugh's job in 2018 when he was about to get traded. I think Miami was in that conversation. John Harbaugh was not going to be in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson came in. He won that division in 2018 as a rookie, went 6-1 as a starter. This is a generational talent. I completely agree with Rashod Bateman and the hate that he gets. I'm all up for having a debate or a conversation about things Lamar has to improve, because Lamar's not perfect. Everybody has to improve, but it just feels like every little mistake that he makes is, criticized, and even stuff that he does well, people find a way to turn it against them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned, him keep getting people jobs. He just got Bateman $37 million extension, basically. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if they, and obviously they weren't always on the same page, but last year they were, and we finally got to see what we really had hoped. I mean, most of Ravens fan hopefully hoped, what we would see. And now, I mean, he's still an ascending player. So I feel like the goalposts have been moved for Lamar forever. He can't throw. He's not a pocket quarterback. Then the 1 year he tried to be a pocket quarterback and didn't run as much. And then, and of course there was a game last year, or was it last year? I think when he said his mother told him, he stopped, get out of the pocket and go, so, and I think the year he bulked up, he wanted to stay in the pocket. He lost that weight and, was using his legs again. I mean, he is generational, but I just think people that are, as I said, he can't be in the pocket. Now, I mean, his numbers in the pocket were crazy last year, so now, and his numbers out of the pocket were crazy. His numbers, period, were crazy. I mean, it was honestly a historical season by the numbers. But so now it is, well, he can't win a playoff game. Well, now he's won a couple playoff games. Well, now he can't win the Super Bowl. I can't get to the Super Bowl. If they get to the Super Bowl and he loses, it's going to be the same thing. Oh, he can't win a Super Bowl. And even if he has a huge game, it's going to be, well, or you got to have a huge game and turn the ball over once. It'd be, well, that's that one turnover, So I think it's just, until he does it. And once he does it, who knows I don't know what goalposts there can be after. I guess he can't do it again, Brady went to 10 Super Bowls or whatever it was, 1-7, whatever it is, but I agree. It's just it's all silly, and part of it's fandom, and other fan bases don't want to acknowledge it or whatever, or people, and you got talking heads that they've invested their I don't know, reputation is too strong because they're talking heads. They change their minds all the time, but some of them seem to be, have their feet, in the concrete, and they just can't admit that they were wrong. And, and fans are like that too. And I mean, some Ravens fans are like that, but still, are too harsh on Lamar, in my opinion. But again, until he wins the Super Bowl, and I certainly hope he will this year, if not, hopefully soon, but if not this year.
Yeah, and an example of moving the goalposts is, everybody says, oh, he can't win in the playoffs, and then he wins playoff games. And then, Joe Fortenbaugh on ESPN says, oh, well, he wins against the Texans and the Steelers. And I'm like, well, he wanted to win in the playoffs, and he's winning, but now he doesn't win against good. Like, again, it's just like the goalposts.
It would suit them if he lost to those teams, his opinion. Yeah. But once he beats those teams, it means nothing.
Exactly. And I want to play a clip quickly for you here, Brian. I had Bruce Cunningham on the show a week ago, and he talked about Lamar and something that he saw in him. He watched very now Hall of Fame NBA player when he was young, and he had a feeling about Lamar. So I want to play that clip for you, and then we'll talk about it, because Bruce, I think, sums up a lot of what I'm thinking here about Lamar. Can Lamar get better? Like, it is scary to think about what a better version of Lamar looks like this season he had.
There are some things he could do better. I'd like to see a lot more accuracy on the deep balls. I think we all would. I mean, he's not perfect in that regard. He also has a tendency to throw behind guys, especially when they're coming across the middle. So, yeah, I mean, he's better than everybody else, but, I mean, there's still things he can get better at. But I like to describe him this way. When I was in middle school in Virginia, we got a team in the ABA called the Virginia Squires, and they signed Dr. J when he was 20 years old, signed him out of UMass. I would go see Dr. J play at age 20, age 21, and leave that building thinking, you know what? I've seen stuff tonight I've never seen before. And Kevin, I never had that feeling again until I saw Lamar Jackson play live. That same feeling within me. This is the level of player that we're talking about here. This is, at some point, he's going to win a championship or two or three. And at that point, when he gets those rings, you might have to start weighing him against Unitas, in terms of impact to this city and to the franchise. And, right now, Unitas is all over him because Unitas has the rings. If Lamar gets some rings, I think it's a fair comparison to make eventually down the road.
So I think, to me, Brian, Lamar is this generational player, like we've said. He's this special talent. And I try to tell myself all the time that whenever he makes one of these spectacular plays, don't get numb to it. I say, Kevin, you can't get numb to it, because we see it so often, especially, you're watching this team, you're covering this team, being fans of, we see it every week. And so while people who don't watch the Ravens or don't cover the Ravens, they see a play from Lamar, like, oh, that is crazy. How does that happen? We're sitting there like, yeah, he did that like 3 times last week. Like, yeah, it's just, it's natural. I mean, I have fun watching Lamar. It is a pleasure to watch Lamar. And for anybody that doesn't get that same pleasure or tries to hate on him or tries to, be all, oh, he's bad and hate watch, they're not getting the Lamar Jackson experience. And that's something I feel bad for him about.
No doubt. And, it's kind of funny, and Lamar he's improved every year. And that should be the scary part for the NFL is there even more room for him to improve? And I'll kind of sort of using Bruce's analogy. I don't go back as far as Unitas, obviously, and Dr. J. But when I was a kid and a teen, Len Bias was amazing. And, obviously a tragedy, but in the games against North Carolina, when he and Jordan went out, he stood up to Jordan every game. I mean, he really did. But in Bias's freshman year, he was a bricklayer. I mean, you could see the talent. I mean, the athletic ability was off the chart, but he was a bricklayer. But the second year, it was a huge improvement. The third year, and it just, and that's why I feel of Lamar. It's that every year, he just gets better. It's, and I don't know if it's the coaches or him says, I'm going to be better at this year. And he works on it. And, and that a lot of players don't do that. I mean, let's face it. A lot of players, especially when you get that, when you become the highest paid player in the game, a lot of players, I'll take it a little easy here. So, I just think it is amazing. And I just, who knows how much further it's going to go. And I really think it, he's a perennial MVP candidate. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be in the running every year. And by the end, unless we get another year like this past year where we get sort of voter fatigue or whatever you want to call it. I mean, you can call me a homer if you want. I know most Ravens fans feel the same, but I mean, he got robbed. And if you want to say he didn't deserve the one the year before, okay, maybe, but that doesn't really affect the voting this past year. And that. No offense to Josh Allen, incredible quarterback. We don't have to get into who's better. I never like those arguments. They're both incredible quarterbacks. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. So, but I just think, I think the sky's still the limit, and that's crazy to say after having the year he just had.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and he is a talent lifter. He lifts things out of guys, and the stuff that Bateman was saying there about. Watching him win his first MVP, and it wasn't like he had the receiving group he has now. It was a rookie Marquise Brown, Willie Snead, Seth Robinson. Like, no disrespect to any of those guys, like they're NFL players, but it's not a super team of wide receivers. And he did that at 36 passing touchdowns in a year where Baltimore was very, very run heavy. So I think, to me, what he does every week is incredible, and he continues to add on to it every single year, like you said, Brian. But coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about whether Lamar could get an extension. Is Isaiah likely getting an extension? Who is next on the Ravens extension train? Plus, we'll break down Rashod Bateman's a little bit as well. So stay tuned. Plenty coming away on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And with Gametime, the price you see is actually the price you pay. There are absolutely no hidden fees. Plus, sometimes plans change, right? And if you're worried about what happens if plans change, the Game Time guarantee, it has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Again, download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Brian McFarland, still talking Ravens football here. Brian, I want to dive into the Rashod Bateman deal with you. 3 years for Rashod Bateman, $36.75 million on that deal. Gets a big chunk of guaranteed money in there as well. So, look, I think Rashod made out very well for himself, and the Ravens also got a bargain of a deal, considering the fact that the wide receiver market is absolutely booming right now, with guys getting 10 plus million per season that shouldn't even be in that conversation. Bateman certainly should be. And with the salary cap going up, Bateman is now locked in with Baltimore for years and years and years down the line, when we're going to see wide receivers probably 15 mil is the new 10 mil, essentially, or what that's going to be, because Baltimore got ahead of the game. And I think this is a smart move for all sides. But what did you think when this deal came down the pipeline? Was this about where you were expecting number-wise with Bateman?
Yeah, I mean, I would expected it more, to be honest with you. There's different ways of looking at contracts. We always hear the numbers. Well, I mean, agents, the numbers the agents want you to hear is what's called the new money. And that's the 3 added years and the 36.75 added. So that's your, 13 plus million, or 12, almost 13 million per year. But he had 12 million on his deal for 2 years already, about 12 million left. So when you put all that together, it's really, and this is the way the team looks at it. The agent can say whatever they want. The team says, okay, we have him under contract for 5 years for 47.8 or 49.8 million. So, I mean, 10 million, but just even less than, barely. But so that to me is a bargain. I mean, that is an absolute bargain. And, if he just does what he did this past year and doesn't ascend, as I said earlier, I think he's still an ascending player as well. But if he just does what he's done, if he repeats this the next 5 years, they'll be very happy, because by the 5th year, 10 million a year. I mean, granted, he'll be getting more cash that year, but that'll be a bargain considering where it's going to be. Now, if he pulls off a year with 1,200, 1,300, then the Ravens are making out like bandits. Now, if he does that in a year or two, he's probably going to want to go back to the table, and we'll see where the cap is, and they certainly might oblige him on that. But I mean, they obviously already obliged him there were still 2 years left. I mean, he was 1 year into a 3-year deal basically, and they ripped it up and took care of it. And my guess is, with the whole fiasco with whether it was his fault or his agent's fault last year and missing that, not showing up training camp showing up a day late and losing that year towards free agency. And, the Ravens did him a solid there as well. Now, I guess in hindsight, maybe he should have played on the 1 year and been a free agent. Well, actually wouldn't be a free agent, because it still wouldn't be a free agent, it'd be a restricted free agent. So yeah, so they did him a solid both times, obviously. And so maybe they will again, but they've got time to get that figured out. I'm sure they said, well, if we revisit this, we'll do this in 3 years. Don't come back next year. And his agent, I'm sure, said but yeah, I mean, I think it's a great deal. And even if it doesn't work out after 3 years, if they get 3 years out of it, they can move on from it, and it's not going to be a terrible cap hit. So it works out for both sides for sure.
Yeah, the big thing with Bateman is, you mentioned it, Brian, he's still a great player and someone that is still young enough to have not reached his full potential yet. And at that point, I mean, for a Ravens team that is going to have to dish out a lot of big time contract extensions, I mean, getting Bateman for this number when the wide receiver market will continue to boom it's a heist. I mean, it's great for the Ravens, but Bateman made out really well for himself. It's a great deal for Bateman. He wanted to be in Baltimore. In the interview with Jeff, he made it clear that he wanted to be in Baltimore, and the Dallas thing was real. He didn't know it was going to happen, but DaCosta made him a priority. They got the job done. He was very grateful for that. And you can honestly even compare it to it goes both ways. So with Nandi Madubuike, right, he bet on himself in a contract year, and he made near $100 million off of that decision. Meanwhile, Brandon Stevens bet on himself in a contract year and lost himself maybe $100 million, not quite 100, but a very large.
The Jets gave him a better deal than I thought they were going. Than he was going to get.
$12 million for Brandon Stevens after the year he had. Shout out to Brandon Stevens and his agent for getting that done, because I didn't think he was going to get that much either. So it's a tale of two sides, where Bateman obviously wanted to stay in Baltimore. He valued the long-term security clearly, and now he has that in Baltimore. But now I think, Brian, the conversation shifts over to, well, you got Bateman done, you got Henry done. Well, what is that next extension that's going to come down the pipeline? And I've made a handy-dandy contract extension tracker. So you have right now Henry and Bateman checked off, but I put Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Tyler Linderbaum, Travis Jones, Marlon Humphrey, and Kyle Hamilton. So those are all the guys right now. And there are some others as well. I didn't put everybody in here, but those are some players that are up for extension. I think the two that are drawing the most attention right now are Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely. So for you, Brian, is there a chance that they can get another one or two of these done before the season? Because last time we talked, I asked you a similar question, and, that was back in May. That was right after the draft happened. Now we're in early July. Training camp kicks off in a few weeks. What's kind of your gut feeling about how this could go?
I think they get at least one more done. I mean, I'd love to say they get 5 more done. That's ambitious, obviously. But I think, DaCosta's made it clear that that they're working on, without saying who, obviously, but, he's always said in the past, and, you got to think about who's a free agent next year, as far as getting something. Linderbaum would be the guy probably, now because you can't use I guess you can use the tag on it, because it would have been pretty much the same thing but a tag on a center at basically an offensive tackles number is, it changes the dynamic of the negotiation. Linderbaum might say, fine, I'll take the $25 million, and I don't care about making 18 or 19 million a year. I'll take the 25, and we'll talk again next year. So. And obviously they'll take the temperature of the negotiations to kind of figure those things out. They've got time with Hamilton. The sooner you get it done, the better, obviously. And DaCosta's always said, and he did early in his tenure, get some guys done early. But that hasn't happened as much the last couple of years. But you don't want a bunch of free agents hitting the market next year. And if they don't get something done with Lamar, you've got that. That cap number going through the roof, which makes, they'll pretty much ceded all the leverage to Lamar by then anyway. But if you've got 10 free agents that you need to sign and you need that cap space, and now maybe you can use that as a negotiating ploy with Lamar. I don't know. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if you want to go with your, holding your hand out saying, I'm poor, please give us some money here, but our cap space, not money, because they're going to be giving him plenty of money. And Likely is an interesting one, because what his true market value is that, because he might not know what it is, because he doesn't yet have the stats. And he might not have the stats after this year, which may, help the Ravens a little. Well, you're not going to go out and put up 1,000 yards probably. So, other teams are going to look up based on potential, and let's say what your potential is, and let's use that. Also the whole, and you generally wouldn't want this, but having 3 tight ends being free agents at the same time, and it just kind of turned out that way, obviously. But, if how does it affect Andrews? Because he's still the number 1 tight end probably, and he's still Lamar's number 1 favorite target. If Likely gets this big contract, and Andrews knows, and he probably already knows he's out the door next year, but then it's the exclamation points are there, and how does that affect the dynamic? And so I could see them waiting on Likely, actually. and just going at it next year, because then you're going to see what teams are thinking. Is he a number one? What kind of money are they offering? And, that's one of those, you go just kind of like they did with Bateman, basically go, different way, but go on the market, see what you're getting offered, and come back to us. And, we're going to be in it. But if the number we're offering isn't there, then, that might be, for him, that might make sense. A Travis Jones might be a guy, because that's one of those little more under the radar ones. So I would think Linderbaum or Jones, probably. I don't know. Oweh would be great for cap space to get an extension, but I don't. They might want to see that and at 10 sacks and from one more year. So that's kind of where I would say it. So it seems to me, like I said, Hamilton you'd like to get done, but that can always wait. Hamilton doesn't seem to be. I mean, he's saying all the right things, obviously, but he doesn't seem to be in too much of a hurry. He knows it's going to happen. He knows he's going to be paid handsomely. So those would be the guys. One sneaky one I thought about, and it's certainly not going to be a big one, but adding a year to Darius Washington's deal this year to allow him to fully rehab without having to worry about hurrying back. They did this with the long snapper,
Nick Moore.
Yeah, Nick Moore, when he got hurt in the spring that one year, and they added, obviously there's way different numbers, obviously, but that could be a sneaky deal where they could, and obviously it's just adding a year and, just adding maybe a $5 million or something like that. So it's not gonna change the dynamic much, but that would allow him, that would allow Darius not to have to rush back or feel like he's got to get back and, and potentially mess up his, he doesn't play well because he's still hurt or something like that. So that would be one that wouldn't be shocking to me, but I think that's pretty much there. I would expect one, hopefully two, if they can get two, and then, we'll see what happens with Andrews. It wouldn't shock me if he ended up getting suspended, extended. It's hopefully not suspended, extended at some point. I'm not saying anytime soon. And you mentioned with training camp coming up, I don't think that's really a hindrance. The Stanley deal and the Humphrey deals both came in September. I think one was in September and one was in October in back-to-back years. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but I don't think they're precluded. But I think once you get to the end of training camp, then I think it's more rare for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of names, a lot of guys, and I know you kind of got to work through as many as you can and give attention to all of them. Plus, obviously, with a star quarterback like Lamar, and Lamar being his own agent, it's a different dynamic. So a lot of things Eric DeCosta has to maneuver through. But coming up, we'll talk about if there is a move Eric DeCosta could potentially make. We'll talk about Baltimore's cap situation as it currently stands, and if the Ravens do have any room to make another addition. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Brian McFarland talking Ravens football. Brian, the Jaire Alexander move, I mean, you talked about it a little earlier, just absolutely an incredible move by the Ravens. I think that this was really the only way that something like this could even happen. There was no way they could have traded for him. The money was too much for him, and we knew Jaire would have had to take a smaller deal. And you had talked about how Baltimore, what was it? It was about $5-ish million in workable cap space before Jaire comes in. Well, they fit him in. It's $4 million, a couple incentives in there that can kick it up to $6 million. What does that deal do for Baltimore's cap space right now? What are their books looking like?
Sure. So, I mean, right now you call it flush in cap space. So they have $15 million in cap space. So they can make any move they want at this point. They have to budget. And that's where what I call my effective cap space comes from. So they really only have about $1.5 million in effective cap space because Mike Green still has to sign the second round pick. There's a log jam there because as time has gone through from the first rookie cap in 11 with the CBA in 11, back then I think only about the top 15 in the first round got fully guaranteed contracts. And that slowly has moved over the years. Every year, another guy or two gets fully guaranteed. And then finally, we got to the end of the first round, and now all first round picks are fully guaranteed. And now it's moving into the second round. Well, you've got now, I guess, the third pick of the second round is the flashpoint, so to speak, of is he getting guaranteed money? Because then the fourth pick is going to ask, and so forth. So, I mean, Mike Green's not going to get fully guaranteed money, but the more they get fully guaranteed in front of him, the more fully guaranteed he's going to get. So, so that's the holdup there. I mean, that's going to happen. Obviously, I would assume it's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. I would be shocked. I mean, I would be shocked if many or any of these second round picks are not on at training camp on time. So you've got that, and then you've got, you know, your practice squad and your injury replacement fund, and you have to have set money aside. You know, you can weekly bring up 2 guys from the practice squad. That it's not a huge amount each week, but that adds up over 17 games. So you've got all those future kind of expenses. We already know Darius Washington's going to be on PUP, so that means there's already, you've got your 53 guys plus Darius. So that's already another guy added to the 53, basically. And then you've got your 16 practice squad players. So all those guys are in count against the cap. So those future expenses are what they have to budget for. So, but they, you know, they could still, if they get Lamar done, then, you know, if they get an extension there, that's going to create cap space. Matabike, just a simple restructure. That's about $5 million in cap space. And they're going to probably want to keep somebody in their back pocket or some money in their back pocket, whether it's through a restructure or have it available from the beginning for the trade deadline in case, you know, they have an injury and they need to pick somebody up, or they think this guy is the last piece of the puzzle going into the stretch run. So so they've got those options, and you know, some extensions will create cap space. Linderbaum will not. That'll take up cap space. Hamilton will take up additional cap space. Travis Jones probably could break about even, maybe take up a little. An extension for Owe would create a lot of cap space. And Lamar as well. So you know, they've got moving pieces. This time last year, they didn't have any moving pieces. They really didn't. I mean, they were probably, you know, in available cap space, they were at probably $5 million, and that they had to make that work pretty much throughout the season. Luckily, last year they didn't have a lot of injuries as they had the year before, so that worked out well. So I mean, right now on the books, they got cap space, but usable cap space not so much. But they do have options to create cap space, so they've got the flexibility there. If another, you know, Alexander comes along, or if it's a guy like Clowney or you know, Judon, somebody like that. I assume most of those guys are waiting for their best offer on the eve of training camp, and then they'll get to work. But so the flexibility is there, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney, Matt Judon, Justin Simmons, you know, others as well. Like, they're all there. And you mentioned the fact that, yeah, Baltimore does like, and they should take some cap space into the season just in case. I think it's always important. They like doing that anyway, so I'd assume that they would want to do that. But is there any hole on this roster, Brian? There aren't a lot of them, but is there any particular hole that you feel like warrants a guy to come in, or do you think they're pretty much set?
I mean, I think they'll tinker, and obviously, you know, knock on wood, but there'll probably be an injury in training camp. And, you know, if there's an injury at edge, that's going to be definitely, you know, increase the need there, perhaps. I mean, but I think you pretty much named them, you know, a third safety, you know, an edge. I don't know that they would bring in a veteran inside linebacker interior there, and maybe a veteran guard. I mean, that would probably be, you know, those would be the only places that I can think of. But if everybody's healthy and they went into the season right where they are, I've got very few complaints.
Yeah, the fact that really there aren't many starter jobs. I think really only the left guard position is the starter job that's up for grabs. It's really just, third safety, you know, backups that they can bring in, which is a testament to where they are with their star power and their depth. I mean, it is, I know people, I keep saying it. I hear the word super team being thrown around here. Right. And while the games are played on the field and not on paper, Baltimore has positioned themselves very well for this season. But Brian, I appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on.
Anytime.
Please, before you head out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on, as I know camp's going to start up in just a couple weeks here. It's coming up quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, this is a little bit of my dead time for sure, unless we do get some kind of, hopefully a couple of extensions, or obviously if they sign someone. And then, there could be some articles on Russell Street on that. And then I always put out an article when we have to go from that 15 million down to about 1.5 million. I'll put an article out explaining why I'm saying that, and put some context to those numbers instead of just a chart like I do right now on X. So yeah, you'll find articles there and on X and on Blue Sky. It's at Raven Salary Cap. So if you're any of those places, you can find me.
All right. Links to Brian's work all in the description down below. Brian, appreciate you for hopping on as always. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens. Appreciate everybody. And be sure on the way out to hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form as well. And we'll be right back here soon talking more Ravens football on Locked On Ravens.